Welcome to Meaning Over Money, a different kind of financial podcast where money is never about money.
Welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are so excited to have you here. We hope you're having an awesome week. And regardless of when you're listening to this, we hope this adds value to your journey. We're going to take a different kind of road today. Maybe not the most fun road, but certainly an important road. And as the year begins, we start to think, about planning and preparedness and making sure things are right. And I was in a meeting the other day with a client, and the husband looks at his wife and he says, and asks the question, what if something happens to me? And by something, he means death. By something, he means, what if I'm gone? What if I'm not here anymore? And the context of this was that he handles all the finances, and she largely doesn't want to be involved in any of it. And he's concerned that maybe if something happens to him, she won't be in a good spot to be able to handle the family's finances. And I think this is a very valid concern. Now, it could be death. It could be a cognitive disability. Maybe it's even divorce. But in any event, he's worried that if something were to happen, she couldn't take the reins and go on with it. And in that situation, he was correct. That was a very, very wise concern because of the way that they had handled themselves. So today, I want to talk about this topic. I don't want to go down a morbid route. I don't want to talk about our spouses dying. But we do need to be prepared. And often what we say here on Meaning Over Money is that we need to think about some of these things now so that we don't have to think about them in the future. We want to knock it out today, and then we're done. So what is the answer? Is the answer to this question of what if something happens to me? How do we get this right? Is the answer that both spouses just handle the money 50-50? So if something happens to one spouse, the other spouse is good? Well, I don't think that's the answer, because that's not a logical way that's going to make sense in the day-to-day life in the event something doesn't happen. In most family situations, it's going to naturally play itself out. One spouse will largely handle all of the finances, or it's the other. Or maybe they're going to handle a lot of these tasks and the other spouse will handle a few others. But very rarely are both spouses going to be involved in every aspect of the handling of the finances. Fun fact, though, people often think it's one spouse handles the money and one spouse doesn't, like male or female. It's about 50-50. But here's the more interesting part. Which person handles the money in a relationship most often goes back to their childhoods and what they experienced with their parents. For example, if people grew up and mom handled the finances, well, mom is supposed to handle the finances and vice versa. It's very typical that people, when they grow up, they mirror what they experienced as a kid. So anyway, that's not the answer. The answer is not both people are 50-50 in handling it. In my house, I handle 100% of the finances. Here's where it matters, though. Both spouses need to be involved in the decision-making. One spouse may be in charge of the doing, but both spouses need to be involved in the decisions, the what's going to happen. They need to know enough to know here's what we're doing and why. The what we're doing and why piece is far more important than the doing piece. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. Both spouses need to be in the know of what's happening, and the best way for that to happen is for both spouses to be empowered to make decisions for the family together. Because if something happens to the other spouse, then the remaining spouse will be involved and understand what decisions were being made. Now, they still need to figure out how to make those, but there's a broad understanding of the road they're going down, which brings us to number 2. We need to keep our finances simple. Most people have unnecessarily complex finances. And I say unnecessarily because most of the time, there's so many different things going on that don't need to be going on. For example, people have, they'll have 7 random bank accounts, or they'll have 4 retirement accounts, or they have this card, and this thing pays for this thing, but this account pays for this other thing. It's very complex. And if your finances are complex, if something were to happen to one spouse, the other spouse is going to step in and be like, I have no idea. Like, why is the electric bill coming out of this card? What is this card? I don't even know what this is. Or my paycheck is going in here, but there's a part of my paycheck that goes somewhere else. Where is the somewhere else? We need to keep it simple. We need to keep things streamlined. When we keep them streamlined, it's just easier, number 1, for us to administer, but certainly, number 2, for our spouse to pick up if something were to happen to us. Number 3, we need to consistently practice intentionality with our finances. If we're not consistently doing finances and being intentional and walking the walk every month, how can we expect our spouse, if something were to happen to us, how can we expect our spouse to just decide, hey, I'm going to pick up finances and I'm experiencing the worst season of my life and I feel pain and suffering and, oh yeah, I'm just going to pick up the finances and we'll start good habits with that. It doesn't work that way. We need to have good financial practices now when things are good. If we can get into the habit when things are good, we have a fighting chance of doing it okay to good when our life is a mess. We have to get into a good rhythm with that. Number 4, we should designate somebody in our life to be a helper if something were to happen to a spouse. If something were to happen to you, is there somebody that you know of that is there that's going to walk alongside of the surviving spouse and help them get the pieces back together? Is there somebody who knows enough that they're able to step in and bring a calm in the storm? We have that in our family. We have somebody that's willing to step in if something happens to me and walk alongside of my wife and help her figure these pieces out so she doesn't have to do it alone. She shouldn't have to do it alone. And luckily, she doesn't have to. Number 5, we need to create what I call, and I call it this because it makes my wife mad, we need to create a death binder. Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? A death binder. So in short, here's what a death binder is. By the way, call it whatever you want. Don't call it a death binder. That's a terrible name. It's a document, a folder, a box that contains a summary of all of our financial accounts and involvements. It'll list out amounts. It'll have institution names. It'll have phone numbers, contact people. It'll even have login information. If something were to happen, my wife needs to be able to go grab this document and know where is our money? Where are our investments? Where is our insurance? Who do we call? And we keep this death binder, as I call it, which is terrible. We keep it in our safe deposit box. So if something were to happen, Sarah knows our safe deposit box houses this document, which can unearth anything she doesn't know about or anything she doesn't know where it's at. She knows about all of it, but it'll help her track things down that need to be tracked down. Now, alongside of the death binder, we need to have documents, whether it's originals or copies of important documents in our life. And I'm just gonna list some out, give you some ideas. You have others that I don't know about, or I'm not thinking about, but this is kind of a common array in my life or people I coach. You want to keep your social security cards, birth certificates, passports, marriage certificates. Keep those all together. You can keep them right there with your box or folder. Titles to your vehicle, real estate documents, any loan documents that you might have, insurance policies, so your auto insurance, life, disability, all of those policies, you want those all aggregated. it would be good to have recent account summaries for your bank and your investments so that your spouse can go grab those and just have an idea. Okay, here's what I'm kind of looking for. This is a general sense for what is in this particular account. We want to keep our wills, obviously. If you have like valuables like jewelry, keep your appraisals, things like that. Keep that there. You want your keys, maybe some directions. If you have P.O. boxes, safes, storage units, things like that. You want, if for example, if you have a storage unit, the spouse needs to figure out where it's at. If they don't know where it's at or they're not there a lot, they need to know where is it, how do you access it, here's the key, here's the code, here's the address, here's all the things you need. Having all these documents together will lower stress during a really heavy and intense season. And lastly, have conversations, not every day, but periodically, have the conversation with your spouse. What if? What if? What if something happens to me? What if something happens to you? What will we do? Are we prepared? We don't want to go all Debbie Downer, but we do want to honor our spouse and our family and our kids, if we have kids, by making sure that we're prepared. This is really the meaning in Meaning Over Money. Yeah, we're talking about financial orders, but this isn't really about money. This is about making sure your family is protected and cared for when you can't care for them. It's so, so important. So I hope this helped. I hope I gave you some ideas. I hope you've already been thinking about some of this. I hope you don't dwell on it or obsess about it. There's no reason for that. But let's get our things together. Let's get our orders in place so that if something happens, just in case, that our family is going to be okay. That's all I have today. Take care, guys.